Today we're going to talk about a book that has to do with the Fae. It is also a reimagining of A Tale of Two Cities, but with a magical aspect to it, with the Fae and goblin markets and hidden pockets in the world. And that book is A Far Better Thing by H.G. Parry. And I picked this up because I had read a prior book of theirs called The Scholar in the Last Fairy Door, and I absolutely loved it. And it's like dark fantasy fiction. And so in this reimagining, I don't know how it compares to A Tale of Two Cities because, well, honestly, I've never read A Tale of Two Cities. All I know is that it was the best of times, it was the worst of times. That's all I got. So maybe at some point in time I'll have to go and read that book. But for now, I can tell you about this one, which I found highly enjoyable. I really like the way this writer writes. And so you get into this. The whole thing in the story is that a changeling should never meet their other. And a changeling is someone who replaces a child that was stolen by the Fae. And so when your child is stolen by the Fae and not the changeling, they take you to Fairy. You have two choices, at least in this book, where you either become a Fae yourself after a certain point in time, or you go back into the regular world and you are the mortal servant of the Fae. And so follows the story of Sydney Carton. And a lot of what they say is that, oh, once you're Fae, you don't remember any of your human life, this, that, and the other. But, you know, in the words of Jeff Goldblum from Jurassic Park, life finds a way. And in that respect, memories will slip through the cracks. So maybe some of these Fae remember things. But anyways, so Sydney Carton, he is a legal advocate and he finds himself in this court case and comes face to face with his changeling. And they're never supposed to meet. So that's either a huge oversight by the realm or someone wanted this to happen. So there's all these weird machinations going on behind the scenes. And so also when like the Fae asks you to do something, if you're their mortal servant, you have to do it or they throw you in this fairy prison, which is basically you're just kind of suspended in what seems like darkness and you hear and feel stuff and it seems very hellish. You're kind of like suspended in nothingness and yet you'll feel stuff touching and poking and saying things and it's kind of absolutely horrible. It's like what they describe it is probably worse than them just killing you. So most times these mortal servants do what they're told, whether it's to steal children or to take bones and bring them to the Fae because the Fae use those bones to grow structures for the children's quarter in the realm of fairy because that is the only thing that won't move around. The bones will stay in place and keep these structures from moving all over the place, but the rest of fairy shifts and moves and never stays in one constant spot. I liked a lot of the description of how fairy was and the ways between the world. And I really like the characters. Just the writing of this author. I like how you see this like dark side. It's a portrayal that makes me more invested in the story instead of, you know, all sunshine and rainbows, you know, the darker side of the Fae, the darker side of humanity, like the struggle to break free from this oppression of being basically bound to these fairies. And so at some point, Sydney comes to this precipice of like, you know, he hates his life. He hates being this servant. He basically drinks his weight in alcohol because nothing matters and he doesn't give any Fs for the most part. And then he meets this changeling and he sees what he could have possibly been. And the thing about changelings in this is another thing I thought was kind of weird is that like in a lot of the lore about changelings and stuff, when a changeling replaces a child, usually the changelings are like these horrendous, horrible a-hole replacement children. But in this, the changelings are like these beautiful, wonderful beings that are nice and kind and lived to be a better version of the people who ended up being stolen as children. And so that's a bit upsetting too for some of these mortal servants to, if they do ever run into their changeling. And that's another thing too in this book that if the realm of fairy, if they find out, he could be killed for meeting his changeling, even though it's not his fault. So like they can't know this. And then, so after he meets the changeling and he does something that actually sets this man free because he would have been sentenced to death had the mortal servant who was the basically doppelganger duplicate of what the changeling person is kind of saved his butt And so stuff didn't go how it was supposed to go. And so this sets off like a whole another just kind of weird cascade of events that happen. And then he starts interacting with this other fae called Shadow. And Shadow wants him to do certain things, to steal children, to kill a specific person. And all of it comes back to, of what you'll find out later, is that, yeah, maybe the Fae do actually remember or have whispers of who they used to be that affect certain things in their lives. And there's a lot of interesting stuff. And it also takes place during like the French Revolution. So it's way back in the day, in like the late 1700s. You have the background of war, but then you also have like the magic and the interference of the Fae that's going on. But it's not just this stuff with Sidney Carton's changeling. There's also this other Fae too that just wants to have like the downfall of the realm of fairy overall. And so you have the person in charge right now in the realm as the Summer King. It seems like people are trying to overthrow him because when he came to reign, it kind of brought peace to the realms, and he basically kind of closed a lot of the doors to fairies so that they weren't just like bopping in and out of the human realm all the time and doing, you know, their trickery or whatever it is, because they're kind of tricksters overall and they're always cutting deals to do stuff. So there's a lot going on in the story. Like I said, I haven't read A Tale of Two Cities, so I don't know how it compares to that, but overall, never having read that story, this I thought was fantastically written. The story flowed really well. It's dark, it's intense, the characters are wonderfully fleshed out. It's whimsical and weird and eerie, and you get like just these interesting looks into the realm and how the realm is, with how everything was moving around and never stayed in one spot. And then other stuff too, like going to the Goblin Market and then meeting other people who are somewhere in between and know some stuff of fairy even when they're not supposed to. So you have that. It's like this darker fiction fantasy type look of it. And I really enjoy that. And I really like how this author writes. It was a book that I went through pretty quickly. I would definitely read more from this author in the future and look forward to seeing what they do next and maybe getting into some of their older stuff in their catalog, because apparently there are quite a few. So if that sounds interesting to you, definitely check it out. And if you have read this and you've read A Tale of Two Cities, I'd be curious how you think this compares, because I honestly don't know. And I kind of wish I did, but I don't. So if you have any inkling of that, I would be very curious to hear what your thoughts are on that. So let me know down in the comments. And if you enjoyed hanging out today, hit that subscribe button, come back see me again, and we'll talk about more bookish things and weird stuff.